And let's just confirm that we're streaming. All these things we have to do. Yes, looks like we're live. So welcome everybody. Welcome, Lianne. For those of you who are watching, it was my creation to create a Master Your Life series. And one of the most important pieces in my life is to helping me create better conversations and communication with my boys. They're not teenagers now, but if I had known Lianne a long time ago, this really would have been a no-brainer to hire her and just figure this out, to help figure this out. So today I'd like to bring on board Lianne Dixon, who is also going to be joining me this coming Wednesday for the Master Your Life series, helping us to have better communications with our teens. So Lianne, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning. It's still morning, barely, but good morning. I'm Lianne Dixon with Getting Real Life Coaching. And Jacqueline, thank you for having me as a guest on your series. And I am I'm certified family coach. I have a background in social work. I come from a history of working mostly with men in mental health, in corrections. I've worked with men who are transient. I've worked with men who were labeled as hard to house, hard to handle. And gang members and all of that stuff early in my career. And so all of that has had a huge influence on how I show up as a mom and how I show up as a coach to parents, and really providing a safe space for them to talk and to explore and learn something new, learn a new way forward, try things on, see what works, and experience some meaningful shifts in their relationships with their teens.
Yeah, and who couldn't use some of that? I mean, parenting doesn't come with a handbook, and we're all so individual that it's not cookie cutter. It's all, for most of us, we had to figure it out. It took me some time to figure out my kids and to understand the best way to live together, because they were both completely opposite. And I hear that all the time, that we have two kids and they're completely opposite, right? So you can't parent one the same way you parent another. You have to figure it out. And sometimes that can be really difficult.
It can be. And I think people get caught up in the idea of, parenting and what does that mean? And more often than not, I think we confuse it with management. And because we're managing our kids, we're in charge of their very survival from the time that they're born onto a certain point, and then we're like really hyper managing them and kind of really
Am I frozen?
know how to do that. And that part of being how to be in connection with them at this stage in their life is really important. It's an important skill, I think, to explore and to develop. And what I see, unfortunately, is so many parents, you've probably seen this too in your practice, they're afraid to come forward because we're so hard on ourselves in the way that we judge ourselves for our parenting, that we don't want to let anybody else know that we're in this struggle. And geez Louise, I mean, join the party. Everybody's having a struggle.
Yes.
with this connection and communication. I promise you are not the worst mom on the planet. Like, whatever you think right now, you're not. And there are a billion other moms who think that they're the worst moms on the planet, who are doing just fine. But what we need, though, is just help and support and non-judgment, like zero judgment. Just come to this place where you can talk about what's going on and explore what else is possible. Just take some of that pressure off.
Yeah. And I think knowing that you're not alone is such a big deal, because how do we judge, right? I mean, most people are on Facebook and it looks like everybody else has it all together, that their kids
Right.
are perfect and you're over here miserable and struggling and nobody's happy and the fighting, and it can be very lonely experience of not
Very much
knowing.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially with our self-sabotaging talk that tells us that we're the only ones on a planet who don't know how to do this, who don't know how to have a conversation that works. That's
Right.
not true.
Yeah.
That's something that's a skill that needs to be developed. And
Right.
and and it takes time to learn that. And it's nicer to learn it in an environment that's judgment free than
Mhm.
in any other environment.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I'm already pretty good at beating myself up. I don't need any more of that, right?
Right? Nobody needs me too. Nobody needs more of that. Not at all.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you get into this?
Well, I think my career really set me up for this kind of work, working with the men and young men that I worked with early on in my career, and also just being a mom. I'm interestingly enough, I used to be very, very shy, like really shy. And people who know me today have a hard time believing that, but I promise it's true. And yet, as this shy young woman going out as a social worker, working with people who lived on the street, who were on the street, who had street attitude, I was always very calm with that big energy. And I could always meet it with a whole lot of respect. And I can say with honesty, I never had a situation that escalated that I didn't, wasn't able to somehow bring down. So there's
Mm.
a part of me that understands the energy that people bring in that's very conflicting, and it kind of just is ready. It's kind
Yeah.
of like it's
For
got the
fight and
fist.
battle
Yeah,
and
you're like
push.
they're
Yeah.
kind of like ready for you. Yeah, and for whatever reason, I've always been able to sort of look at that and go, okay, so what's next? What else are we going to talk about? And so when it was time to sort of reimagine myself, my career later on in life, looking at working with families and parent coaching seemed like a very natural fit. Helping parents, sort of breathe and be present, and maybe just kind of like help bring down the volume. And if you can bring down the volume in a situation and you know how to present yourself, then it takes a lot of the heat out of the room and out of the space that's between you, and you can have easier conversations, and you can really transform your relationship that way.
Yeah. So what have you
Yeah.
seen in your families with the doing this work? Because I feel that it is really needed. I feel that our kids are having a hard time and nobody teaches communication. So what are the results that your clients are experiencing?
Yeah, we're not really good at teaching communication or relationship, and the two sort of go hand in hand, right? So
Mhm.
so what I'm finding is that as I'm teaching parents new skills about how to communicate and be present, what I'm also teaching them is how to be in relationship and how to model positive relationship for their teens, so that when their teens graduate out of the household, they're ready to create positive relationships in a way that we were never prepared to do
Mhm.
ourselves. That's the huge payoff. So what I notice with parents is that is an increase in self-confidence. That's a big deal, because when you're in a situation at home where you're constantly feeling frustration between you and your teen, or you're not even sure if they like you, and you're not sure if you could say certain things, and like
The tiptoeing around things,
right,
yeah.
you're tiptoeing around. So when you're in that space, it's exhausting, and it really really affects your self-confidence as a parent.
Yeah.
And so when I start working with people, and they step into this space of curiosity with me, then we can try things on, and they have these wins. They experience these wins. They see these shifts. They're like, I had a miracle conversation with my son last week, and it happens, and it's a little bit at a time, but it's happening. And every time it happens, their self-confidence grows and they're like, oh, I got this. And you know what? I can use this because in other areas of my life, in
Right.
other relationships in my life. So there's a huge benefit. It doesn't just benefit the relationship they're having with their teen, but it benefits how they approach relationship and communication with everyone. So that's a huge celebration.
That's incredible because it's the ripple effect, right? Of
Mhm.
understanding yourself, speaking up, and having everybody just come from that loving space and shifting from the battle to wanting to be in communication and wanting to be with your kids and allowing your kids to actually enjoy being with their parents.
And you enjoy them,
Yeah.
right? Like how many moms out there aren't even sure and who don't want to say to anybody, I don't know if I even like them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I
Yeah.
even like them. So to get to the point where you actually like, oh, well, they're kind of cool.
Yes. So many
So,
things come out. Actually having fun on vacation with them, right? Instead of
right.
having drama. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a big
Wonderful
deal.
thing.
So, yeah.
Wonderful.
So I'm thrilled that we're having this presentation on Wednesday night because I think that we can certainly help support parents who are feeling, really frustrated and want to explore new ways forward.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely needed. I'm very excited to have this and to even learn more about you. So what are some things that you'll be sharing with them? Do you want to share any of that?
Yeah, very briefly, I think what we're going to do is really take a look at culturally what are our expectations and attitudes around teenagers. Because if we can actually take an honest look at that without any judgment, let's just look at it for what it is.
Mhm.
I'm really big about without judgment because I can't remind us to stop that,
Yeah.
especially the self judgment.
Mhm.
So if we can look at attitudes that we have around teens and our expectations of them, and see how those attitudes, whether or not we buy into them 100%, they're out there. They're out there. And we may think, oh, well, other people believe all of these negative things about teens, but not me. Except maybe there's like a part of you that's like this big that maybe believes that teens are lazy,
Mhm.
right? And if that's a part of you, and whatever part of you believes that, then that is going to have an impact in the manner that you communicate. That is going to affect how you show up, whether or not you ask them to participate, how you ask them to participate, all of this stuff. So we're going to look at, attitudes. And then we're going to take that further and see how we can shift those attitudes in a way that is more honoring to and in service to our relationships rather than hurting our relationships. Because a lot of the negative stuff is a non-starter. And then we can look at language. What words are we using?
Mhm.
How can we change our approach with words once we shift our perception that invite our kids, our teens to come in and feel a part of the conversation, feel a part of this partnership that you're creating, and how do we move forward from there? So there's a
Mhm.
lot. So we're going to unpack some layers there, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
You're bringing up so many important pieces. Um, Especially, do you believe that a lot of the kids today are very empathic? So when my kids were young, I just felt that they were in my head, that they felt my frustration, right? And I would see them shut down immediately. So I'd have to like reframe, take a breath, and start over. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the kids are empathic today. And in fact, that was one of the things I taught my son earlier on is like, what belongs to you and what
Mhm.
doesn't, So we've had a lot of talk about that. Like, if I'm frustrated, that belongs to me right now. That's not yours to take. So I think our teens are, and we have to sort of allow the space and the grace and the curiosity, because curiosity is really what's key. It's not about how we're doing things wrong. it's about how we need to look at, or need is not probably the right word, but there's
Right,
an
right.
invitation
Yeah.
to sort of come into this space and look to see what else is possible and be
Mhm.
curious about it. Because our kids, you know, we don't have big things. They have big world issues. They have big things coming up in their lives. And we want to set them up the very best way we can with the very best skills that we can so that they don't get stuck with all their mommy and daddy issues like we did, like so many of us did, who are still kind of sorting through them into our 50s, 60s, and 70s. Let's have less of that so that they can focus more on the work that they need to do, on the contributions that they need to make moving forward. That's a
Right.
huge gift. And so can I ask you questions
Yes.
now? Okay. Okay, because I know, like, in the energy work that you do and as a healer, you talk to a lot of moms, especially, I'm assuming, and you work with all of this beautiful ancestral energy. Can you share a little bit about how, like, because this is your part of the presentation. I'm more of the practical stuff, and not that yours isn't practical, but you bring in all of this beauty of this ancestral energy. And how does that energy impact well, obviously all aspects of our lives, but maybe more specifically for this topic, our relationships and how we show up and communicate with one another.
Yeah, well, ancestral energy is the unresolved emotional issues of our ancestors. So all the conversations that they didn't heal from. I was just on vacation, a beautiful vacation with 14 people, lots of family members. And it was interesting to see the dynamics and the lack of communication at times. So many times we just feel uncomfortable, right? But nobody's ever taught us, what do you do with that uncomfortable feeling, right? Most of us have been taught to react instead of, well, let me just take a breath here and let me just figure out what I'm feeling and then have a conversation about it. So I love that we're bringing this together because we learn everything from our parents and the generations that come before us. And I don't think there's too many families that can say they had really good conversations, that they were taught really good conversations, that they were taught that their feelings are their feelings and it's safe to have them. So all of this, when we are conceived, becomes part of us. All the triggering, all the habits, the patterns, the good, the bad, the ugly, are in us. And so many times we don't understand it until we get to be 30, 40, 50 years old. And we're like, well, my relationships aren't really working. And how come I haven't found the guy? And why does something always happen to me? Right. And then we have to figure it all out. So I think what you and I are trying to do is help so many people stop the suffering earlier, right? If we could stop the suffering earlier and just unpack it and just be real about it, it would just be a different planet, right? I have chills thinking about it. So yeah, that's how I feel about ancestral energy and the conditioning that we've all are given, whether we like it or not, we inherit it.
Right. Yeah. And you don't even know it. You don't even know that you've inherited it. And I love, because I've worked with you in the past, I love how you move people through that without shame.
Mm.
Because that
Yeah,
kind of goes back to all of our self-talk stuff, but because we're really good at that on our own, but to be able to look at it and to unpack it, that's just what it is. It's like and you probably say it better than I do, but it's like observing it, right?
being a witness to it, right? Being and I think that one of the most important things is right now we're in a society where we're pointing fingers and we're interrupting people and we're not letting people finish their thoughts and what they want to say, what they want to communicate. So the number one thing is, let's just be respectful. And there is no shame. What you feel is what you feel. And let's honor that. Right. And then we can unpack it. Okay. Like you said, is it yours? Did you hear your mother say that? Did you hear your father say that? Grandparent, uncle, where did it come from? Because I never even knew that I can like shift this. I can move energy. Energy is energy. You can move it, you can transform it, transmute it. But first we have to understand, well, what am I really feeling? And I don't think we create a place for children, for relationships, to have those deep, hard conversations at time. And then to allow somebody to say, I'm really angry at you, because our trigger goes up, right? But when we heal our own triggers, then we can have that conversation and be the adult and say, okay, share me, how do you feel? I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned. My kids have somehow they taught me to ask them how they're feeling, instead of me saying, this is what you should do. It's a gift to have that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So you're going to weave all of this into Wednesday night's presentation?
Well, no, it's a lot, right? It's a lot that we do with our people,
It's like,
right?
yeah, it's mind-blowing stuff.
Yes, yes. So we're going to give them enough. So I'm just going to give a few pointers, I'm going to talk about ancestral energy. I'm going to talk about limiting beliefs in our mindset, that just like you said, we manifest our lives through the words we speak. So we have to be conscious of that. So I'll take people through a process of that and how to shift. You have to be aware of it first,
Yeah.
right? Then you can shift it. So what we're doing, we're just going to give people an awareness, and hopefully, well, I know that people will walk away with little light bulbs going on and saying, oh, well, I can do this. And you'll be able to start taking action immediately after a workshop.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And just feel really good about the action that you're taking too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Woo. All right. I can't wait.
Yeah. So I'll leave the link for the registration. It is $25 before, it's $30 at the door. This is an in-person event and also an online. There will be a virtual aspect. So please register in time so that everybody can get the Zoom links if you need that. Otherwise, if you're in Connecticut and you're free on Wednesday at 6:30 for about an hour and a half, we will be at the Bridge Healing Arts Center in Farmington, Connecticut. Yeah, anything else that you
No,
can
I'm
think of?
just looking forward, to seeing everybody there, and I can't wait to see what kind of shifts we can help put into motion. It's
Absolutely.
exciting. Yeah.
It is exciting. So if you're watching on Facebook, feel free to leave questions, connect with Lianne. Lianne, I'll have you leave your information so that they can get a hold of you if they have questions.
Okay.
And we hope to see you there.
All right. Well, thanks, Jacqueline. See you Wednesday night.
Okay. Bye.